Good day, we are the Group 1 and today we're going to discuss about evaluating the curriculum. First is, what is an evaluation? According to Benjamin Bloom, it is a systematic collection of evidence to determine whether in fact certain changes are taking place in the learners as well as to determine the amount or degree of change in individual students. Evaluation may be both quantitative or numerical and qualitative or verbal. Evaluation is how we make a judgment about the amount, number, value, or something. It is a feedback from the instructor rather, to the students about the student's learning, and an example for this is an assessment. Let's move forward to the steps in evaluating the curriculum. According to Granlord, 1968, the basic steps in evaluating curriculum is summarized as follows. First is identification of the instructional objectives or the exact learning results desired. So here the instructor will identify the objectives so that he or she can get the desired goals in classroom environment. Next step is, if necessary, operational statement of these objectives, specification of the process and content elements in case instructional objectives are not precisely stated. So the second step is where all the objectives and content is reviewed thoroughly to see the objectives that is not precisely stated. So for the number 3 is the selection of instruments for measuring or description of learning results expected. So for the third step, it is where all the materials and instruments to use on evaluating are used to see the results and outcomes. While on the number 4, administration of the instruments and analysis of outcomes to determine the extent of which the expected learning results have been attained. So in this last step, it is where the instructor must analyze and use the instruments to see the final results and see if it attained by the objectives. Let us now proceed to the 6 progressive steps in evaluating process. So the evaluating process can be described as involving 6 progressive steps. First is, or the step 1 is defining the purpose and scope of the evaluation. The first step in planning is to define an evaluation purpose and scope. This helps set the limits of the evaluation confining to manageable size. Defining its purpose, it includes deciding on the goals, objectives for the evaluation, and the agents for the evaluation results. So the first step is defining the purpose and scope of the evaluation, which one challenge of conducting evaluation is finding the right objectives and goals. So for the first step, it helps to give clear purpose for a study that gives the evaluator a good sense of what information should be used and help frame the scope of the project as a whole. Overall, knowing the scope of the evaluation projects provides a sense of the resources needed. So a common pitfall for those getting started with evaluation is trying to carry out a project before trying thinking about the overall purpose of the evaluation. Next two is specifying the evaluation questions. So evaluation questions grow out of the purpose and scope specified in the previous steps. They help further define the limits of the evaluation. The evaluation questions will be structured to address the needs of the specific audience to whom the evaluation is directed. So, evaluation questions articulate the main issues that will be explored by the assessment. They are usually developed after the goals and objectives of a program that have been decided and activities to support those objectives have been determined. So, we need to specify the evaluation questions to guide the evaluation planning process. including data gathering and the methods to be used to obtain the information that is important to the program. Implementers, the beneficiaries, and other stakeholders. Lastly, to inform how the results will be incorporated back into planning and implementing to provide the assessment. So let's move forward to the step 3, which is developing the evaluation, design, and data collection plan. This step involves specifying the approach to answering the evaluation questions, including how the required data will be collected. This will involve the specifying the data sources for each evaluation question, specifying the types of data, data collection approaches, and instruments needed, specifying the specific time periods for collecting the data, and lastly, specifying how the data will be collected and by whom, and specifying the resources which will be required to carry out the evaluation. The design data collection plan is actually a roadmap for carrying out the evaluation. An important part of the design is the development or selection of the instruments for collecting and recording the data needed to answer the evaluation questions. So here, developing the evaluation design and data collection is also a detailed documentation of data. So it is procedure of collecting, measuring, and analyzing accurate insights for using standard validated techniques. So overall, these are important because it is how the information collected is used and what explanations can be generated. So let's move to the next reporter.
Hello, my name is Munaifa Escoutin. Now, let's move on to the step 4. The step 4 is collecting the data standardized procedure need to be followed so the data are reliable and valid. Data collection should be follow the plans developed in the previous step. The data should be recorded carefully so that can be tabulated and summarized during the analysis stage. Deviations from the data collection plan should be documented. Collecting data allows you to store and analyze important information about your existing and potential customer. Collecting this information can also save your company money by building a database of customers for the future marketing and retargeting effort. Now, let's move on to the step 5. The step 5 is the analyzing the data and preparing a report. An individual with appropriate statistics skill should have responsibility for this aspect of the evaluation. Data reporting is an important factor in the day-to-day activities of life, from business to finance and commercial activities. Data reporting goes hand in hand with the data analysis is essential in every work of life. The evaluation will not be completed until the report has been written and the result is communicated to the appropriate administration and decision makers. In preparing the report, the writing should be clear about the audience from whom the report is being prepared. This is the two-part question need to be considered. The first one is what does the audience need to know about the evaluation result? The second, how can this result be the best presented? Different audience need different levels of information. Administrators need general information for policy decision making, while teacher may need more detailed information which is to focus on program activities and effect on the participant. The report it should be covered is the following. The first one is the goals of the evaluation. The second one is the procedure or the method used. The third one is the finding, and the last is the implication of the findings, including the recommendation for change or improvement in the program. Now, let's move on to the step 6, the last step, using the evaluation report for the program improvement. Schools should never satisfied with their program. Improvements can always be made. Evaluation are important tool for accomplish this purpose. The evaluation may indicate that an interesting activity is being implemented according to the plan. If so, it is then the responsibility of the teacher and administrator to make appropriate to change. The evaluation part is the key to product of the evaluation process. It is a purpose is to provide a transparent basics for the accountability for the result, for the decision making on policy and the programmer, for learning, for drawing lesson, and for improvement. So that's all the step and thank
Let us now proceed to the evaluation models. These evaluation models are framework for investigating and analyzing the effectiveness of the curriculum. So here are the 10 indicators that are used to evaluate the curriculum. The first indicator is the vertical curriculum continuity. Thus, the curriculum reflect the correct format, which enable teachers to quickly access what is being taught. The second indicator is the horizontal curriculum continuity. Thus, the curriculum provide content and objectives that are common to all the classes of the same grade level. The third indicator is the instruction based on curriculum. So, are there lesson plans derived from the curriculum and its strategies? The fourth indicator is the curriculum priority, which means the teachers who were involved in the curriculum making must be given stipends and assistants or must be paid because as they are working during summer times. The fifth indicator is the broad involvement. When we say broad involvement, is there evidence that the different curriculum stakeholders in the planning and designing the curriculum are indicated in that module or curriculum? The sixth is the long range planning. The creating of the curriculum needs a long time to develop it. So the curriculum must be processed for 5 years and must have review cycle for the development. So is the review development within the period of planning, implementation, and review of the curriculum is there indicated in the curriculum. So the seventh indicator is the decision making clarity. The decision made during the development of the curriculum must be the focus and not who developed the curriculum. The eighth indicator, positive human relations. The communication between the curriculum developers, educators, and principals must be remain positive in order for them to create the curriculum effectively. The ninth indicator is the theory into practice approach. All factors like objectives, outcome, activities, and others must be clear and understandable. And the last indicator is the planned change. The acceptance of the curriculum by the students, teachers, and parents as the changes are made in the making of the curriculum to make it better. So, to wrap it up, Bradley's effectiveness model looks at how effectively the curriculum meet the established indicates in the established indicators in the evaluation for the development of the curriculum. So the second model is the Tyler Objectives Centered model. So Ralph Tyler in 1950 proposed a curriculum evaluation model which up until now continues to influence many curriculum assessment processes. So presented are the several steps or presented are the elements in this model. First, it begins with the behavioral objectives that must specify both the content of learning and expected behavior of the pupils. Second is the situation of context, which identify the situation that will give students the opportunity to develop their behavior. The third is the evaluation instruments. The curriculum must constructed instruments for the objectives and others. The fourth is utilization of tools. The curriculum must utilize the tools in order to obtain results by computing from the instruments before and after to determine the changes. The fifth is analysis of results. Analyze the obtained results to determine the strength and weaknesses of the curriculum. And lastly is the utilization of the results. The results are used to make changes or to make modifications.
So good day everyone, I'm Charlene May Bigondran, your reporter for the next module known as the Context Input Process Product Model or shortly known as the CIPP model. To begin, we may first recognize the one who chaired the Phi Delta Kappa National Study Committee on Evaluation, Daniel L. Staffelbeam in the year 1971. He was the one who introduced a widely cited model of evaluation known as the CIPP model. To further broaden our knowledge on the topic, allow me to discuss it with you. So what is CIPP model? This model originated in the late 1960s to provide greater accountability for the U.S. Inner City School District Reform Project. CIPP model is a comprehensive framework for conducting formative and summative evaluations of projects, personnel, products, organizations, and evaluation systems, according to Staffelbeam and Schoenfeld 2007. The approach when applied to education aims to determine if a particular educational effort has resulted in a positive change in school, college, university, or training organization. A major aspect of the CIPP model is centered on decision-making or on making up one's mind about the program introduced. For evaluations to done correctly and aid in the decision-making process, curriculum evaluators have to, first, delineate what is to be evaluated and determine what information has to be collected. Delineate means to describe or portray. Second, obtain or collect the information using selected techniques and methods. And lastly, third, provide or make available the information to interested parties to decide whether to maintain, modify, or eliminate the new curriculum or program. Information is obtained by conducting the following four types of evaluation, which are context, input, process, and product. So we proceed to the four components of Staffelbeam's CIPP evaluation model. These four components play important and necessary roles in the planning, implementation, and assessment of a project. The purpose of an input evaluation is to help prescribe a program by which to make needed changes. During input evaluation, experts, evaluators, and stakeholders identify or create potentially relevant approaches. They can assess the potential approaches and help formulate a responsive plan. Process evaluation affords opportunities to assess periodically the extent to which the project is being carried out appropriately and effectively. Product evaluation identifies and assesses project outcomes, both intended and unintended. So here are the four components of Staffelbeam CIPP evaluation model. So we can see here the context which answers the question, what needs to be done in what context? For you to easily understand its content, we have only attached the important details and information in this component. So according to Staffelbeam 2003, the objective of context evaluation is to assess the overall environmental readiness of the project, examine whether existing goals and priorities are attuned to needs, and assess whether proposed objectives are sufficiently responsive to assessed needs. The methods for the context evaluation include system analysis, surveys, document reviews, secondary data analysis, hearings, interviews, diagnostic tests, and the Delphi techniques, according to Dakey and Helmer 1963. So let's move on in the second component, which answers the question, how should it be done? An input evaluation helps prescribe a project to address the identified needs. It identifies procedural designs and educational strategies that will most likely achieve the desired results. Consequently, its main orientation is to identify and assess current system capabilities, to search out and critically examine potentially relevant approaches, and to recommend alternative project strategies. The result of the input evaluation step is a project designed to meet the identified needs. The success of a service learning project requires a good project plan that, if implemented correctly, will benefit both service providers, which is the students, and service recipients, which are the community members. So methods used to execute an input evaluation include inventorying and analyzing available human and material resources, proposed budgets and schedules, and recommended solution strategies and procedural designs. Key input evaluation criteria include a proposed plan's relevance, feasibility, and superiority to other approaches, cost and projected cost effectiveness. On the third component, it answers the question, is it being done? Process evaluation monitors the project implementation process. It provides an ongoing check on the project's implementation process. Important objectives of process evaluation include documenting the process and providing feedback regarding to A. The extent to which the planned activities are carried out. B. Whether adjustments or revisions of the plan are necessary. An additional purpose of process evaluation is to assess the extent to which participants accept and carry out the rules. Process evaluation methods includes monitoring the project's procedural barriers and unanticipated defects, identifying needed in process, project adjustments, obtaining additional information for corrective programmatic changes, documenting the project implementation process, and regularly interacting with observing the activities of project participants, according to Staffelbeam and Shakefield 2007. Lastly, process evaluation techniques include on-site observation, participant interviews, rating, scales, questionnaires, records, photographic records, case studies of participants, focus groups, self-reflection, sessions with staff members, and tracking of expenditures. Lastly, on the last component, it answers the question, did the program succeed? Product evaluation identifies and assesses program outcomes. The purpose of a product evaluation is to measure, interpret, and judge a program's outcomes by assessing their merit, worth, significance, and probity. Its main purpose is to ascertain the extent to which the needs of all the participants were met. To sum up, the context input process and product evaluation model has a strong orientation to service and the principles of a free society. It calls for evaluators and clients to identify and involve rightful beneficiaries, clarify their needs for service, obtain information of use in designing responsive projects and other services, assess and help guide effective implementation of service, and ultimately assess the service merit, worth, and significance. The authors believe that the model can help guide service learning project, needs assessment and planning, monitor the process of implementation, and provide feedback and judgment of the project's effectiveness for continuous improvement.
And that is the CIPP model, where it's the context, input, process, and product, where it measures the context, input, process, and product of a certain program. And for the next model is the called goal-free evaluation. There, when we first hear it, goal-free, which is right, because it attempts to observe and measure or actual outcomes, effects, or impacts intended or unintended, all without being cued to the program's intentions. So, let's go for the definition of goal-free evaluation. So, for more enlightenment, goal-free evaluation or the GFE, and according to Weiss and Jacobs in 1988, page 528, it is any evaluation in which the evaluator conducts the evaluation without particular knowledge of our reference to start predetermined goals, in which broad statement of a program proposed or expected outcomes usually not specific enough to be measured and often concerning long-term and short-term expectations. And according again to Weiss and Jacob at page 533, Objectives is the statement indicating the planned goals or outcomes of a program or intervention in a specific and concrete terms. According to Scribbins, goal-free evaluation is used to complement, not to supplant or replace. Using it alone will not provide sufficient information for the decision making. The goal-free evaluator attempts to disturb and measure all actual outcomes, effects, or impacts intended or unintended, all without being cued to the program's intentions.
Hi, I'm Frasiline, and for today, I will be continuing the report of Jarek Balud about the goal free evaluation. So, I will be continuing it with how is it done. And we have number one, the evaluator functions as an unbiased observer who begins by generating a profile of needs for the group served by a given program. So, in the first part, it might have been mentioned or it might have been written that the goal free method, the evaluator, was kept away from the goals and objectives of the program. So that means the evaluator don't know about the goals and objectives of the program, hence, and they don't have much communication with the people involved there. So in this one, during the evaluation, they will be generating a profile, especially when it comes to their needs, by interviewing, asking some questions, and others, observing as well. And compared to stakes responsive model, which will be discussed later on, this is more objective while stakes is subjective. Since in the first one they will be focusing on the needs of the people involved and not on the people themselves. Next one is by using methods that are primarily qualitative in nature, the evaluator assesses the actual effects of the program. So if a program has an effect, then effect that is responsive to one of the identified needs, then that means this program is very useful. Just like that. So another example. Okay, this is an example. For example, in BPP, I enrolled in BPP because I don't know how to bake. Cake or pastries or bread. So one of my needs is to be able to bake a cake like that. And for example, during the assessment, I was able to pass the test, or I was able to get a higher score like that. As long as I pass, then that means my needs was fulfilled and the training was successful. The same with this method. If the effects of this method or it was able to, yes, the effects of this method reached some of the needs of the students, then that means the method that was used is very successful as well. After discussing how is it done, we also have to take note some of the following. So number one, determine what effects the curriculum had and evaluate them whether or not they were intended. So we also have to determine or know the expected outcome of the program or of the curriculum, as well as the unexpected outcome of it. The next one, number two, evaluate the actual effects against a profile demonstrated needs. So in this one, the effects might be different from every student. That is why we also have to evaluate the actual effects that happened to the student, to the student, and then the effects that we were expecting from the student. Okay. Number three, notice something that everyone else overlooked, or produce a novel overall perspective. So in this one, we have to be meticulous whenever we're evaluating someone, because there might be something that was not evaluated or something that was not noticed during the evaluation. So as an evaluator, we have to be meticulous on that, or we have to notice every nook like that. And number three, do not be under the control of the management. Choose the variables of the evaluation independently. So you will be the evaluator. So although the management will be guiding you, they will be guiding you, but they will not be controlling you on what you will be evaluating and the variables of the evaluation. So in the end, you will be choosing independently, and of course, everything will be on you. So we also have the criteria for judging evaluation studies. We have the first, validity, if it is logically or factually correct. Next, reliability, if it's trustworthy. Objectivity or credibility, if it's plausible. Importance or timeliness. Relevance, scope, and efficiency. So that's it for the goal-free evaluation. If you do have some questions, you can always ask us. So after talking about the goal-free evaluation, for today we are going to proceed with the last evaluation, or with the last model, which is the stakes responsive model. So this kind of model is a less formal and more pluralistic evaluation. Its central focus is on addressing stakeholders' concerns and issues. So, for the word stakeholders, by the way, we are talking about the clients, the staff, and the audiences. So, this one, it emphasizes more on the concerns and issues. So for the next one, aside from that, responsive model is oriented more directly to program activities rather than program intents. So this one, after determining the concerns and the issues, they will be focusing more, or it will be oriented more into the activities done rather than the intent of the program. So, for example, again, I'll be giving more examples regarding BPP, since I think this is what I'm familiar most right now. So, the program of BPP is for us to be employable. For us to be able to create our own business when it comes to bread and pastry production. That's one of the purpose. And another one is for us to learn, of course. However, when we are talking about the activities, it's a little more specific, like what can we do in bread and pastry? What are the activities that we can do there? So we have the baking breads, baking cakes, baking, what else? Baking pastries, like that. So again, it focuses more on the trainings rather than the program intents. Next one, it emphasizes evaluation being conducted in settings where learning occurs. So again, for the first one, it focuses more on concerns and issues. The second one, it focuses on the activities, program activities. And the third one, emphasizes evaluation being conducted in settings where learning occurs. So that means while we are learning, there is an evaluation being done. And the fourth one, improved communication is the goal. So the model responds to emerging issues learned through interaction and observation instead of giving too much attention to predetermined issues. So emerging, those are the rising issues that we will be we might encounter during the process. So responding to that is the main focus rather than to the predetermined issues which might not happen or which may happen. So after talking about the definition of stakes responsive model, for today let us see also the steps on curriculum evaluation. So we have number one, the evaluator meets with the clients or with the stakeholders. Number two, the evaluator draws from on such discussions and analysis of any documents to determine the scope of the evaluation. So after a long discussion and analysis, they also have to know the evaluator also has to know until where the evaluation can be. And the third one, the evaluator observes the curriculum closely to identify the unintended sense of implementation and many deviations from an announced intent. So like the topic should be going like this, but you're going like this, so that will be different. They have to observe on that. So deviating. And number four, the evaluator identifies and discovers the stated real purposes of the program. So they have to know why do we have this program, why is this program being implemented, and various audiences have about it. Also for the audiences, like who will be involved and the people that will be served in that program. Number five, step five, the evaluator identifies the problems of the curriculum evaluation at hand and identifies an evaluation design with needed data. So, of course, for everything that we're doing, might be a problem. They also have to identify that and also the evaluation design that will be needed. Number six, the evaluator selects the means needed to collect data or information. So means we're talking about the tool or the ways what will be needed, the things that will be needed in data collection. Next, step number 7, the evaluator implements the data implementation. So just like in research, so collection procedure. Step number 8, the evaluator organizes the information into themes and prepares portrayals that communicate in natural ways the thematic reports. The portrayals may involve videotapes, so the evaluator can present it through videotapes, artifacts, case studies, or other faithful presentations. Next one, step number 9, the evaluator decides with stakeholders the most appropriate formats for the report. So these are the steps. These are the 9 steps in the curriculum evaluations. So after the advantages will be the disadvantages. So we have the number 1, stresses complexity rather than simplicity. Since we will be looking at different viewpoints here, and it is about the preconceived issues and then the emerging issues, then it is this is a little complicated, since the evaluator will be focusing on the priority issues which is arising from the program implementation. Next one, it is subjective because it is center based, and next, labor intense. Another, it's not suitable for making generalization or to developing theories. So it is only for the selected stakeholders or clients, and the results are subjective. That is why it can't be generalized. Unlike for the first one, the yes, the first one, which is the goal-free evaluation, it is objective, but for these stakes, it is subjective. So that's it for the report about the stakes responsive model. So I hope you understood, and if you have some questions regarding our discussions, you can always, please ask. Please do ask. So again, thank you for today and have a wonderful day. Bye.